This is Doleo, an original thriller fiction podcast presented in serialized format, a chapter at a time. Written by Jared Canton, narrated by Joshua Canton, a Steadychaos production, 2019. Previously on Doleo. All this for one darky? The silhouette of a man shifted slightly as he spoke. I said nothing, opting to test his physical boundaries with a step forward. Stay there. He glimpsed over his shoulder and slid his right foot back. It doesn't have to end like this. I lifted my palm as if doing so would calm him. It was a naive thought. I knew nothing about him beyond the simple fact that he had stabbed James for what I could only presume was no good reason. For whom? He asked. Either of us. Bullshit. Why James? It was the first conversation starter I could think of, and the answer I wanted most. I'd heard in situations like these, dialogue was a useful tool, a potentially disarming one, but admittedly, I was out of my depth. I told him to let me pass, and he wouldn't. Past where? The lobby. Why? My bitch ex-wife lives on the 3rd floor. So you stabbed him? Yes. He said it so coldly that even I felt a chill. Without another word, he turned his back on me, as if nothing I had to say could possibly impact his decision. Behind him, there was nothingness, darkness across the horizon for at least 40 feet before small yellow windows dotted a hotel building. His right leg jutted upward, and the sole of his shoe found the top of the short wall surrounding the upper floor of the parking garage. He extended his leg and his body jerked upward. He dug his second foot into the top of the wall, and his legs bent, loading up for a jump. As he did, I acted, sprinting towards him. I closed the gap quickly and dove for the bottom of his coat as he jumped. My right hand curled firmly around the fabric as he hurled himself off the side, like a long jumper, outward, not upward. He traversed 3 feet. The coat fabric grew taut. I felt a pulling force, and his outward progress stopped dead. For a second, maybe two, I had him, and his body careened back hard against the concrete exterior wall. The force of the concrete wall against my chest pressed the air clear of my lungs. I coughed. He looked up at me briefly, terror in his eyes, not the eyes of a man committed to the choice he had just made. Don't let... He never finished that sentence. The position of his arms set everything in motion. During the jump, he had thrown them forward and up to generate thrust. It had, but more importantly, their elevated position when he collided back against the wall freed him. He slid smoothly, quickly clear of his jacket. He yelled something urgent, unintelligible, and his cries faded into the night. I gripped the jacket firmly. The other end lay uselessly against the concrete wall below me. It flapped in the wind. Time stood still, and then a dull crunch signaled his body's impact with the pavement below. The sound gashed clean through the drones of traffic, horns, and empty drunken hollers. A paralyzing acknowledgement of failure hit, replaced instantly by something far worse as I pulled myself up for a closer look. What had been regret about a man that had chosen to end his life quickly became panic and dread. My stomach clenched, and my windpipe forced out a hard nothing with a cough and throaty groan. I wiped my mouth on my wrist and dry heaved again. I stared in disbelief, pulled both hands through my hair and let my elbows prop my head as I pulled fiercely at the hair at the back of my neck. No, 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 I cried in disbelief. Not 8 feet below, nor 8 feet across, a rooftop. From my previous position, it had been invisible, below my sight line. This man hadn't intended to jump to his death, but I had made sure he did. Episode 10, Aequitas. Not 300 yards from the remnants of my shattered cell phone, blue lights and sirens infested the landing spot of James's attacker like ants on picnic spillings. I had stood atop the parking garage, a whirlwind of reaction dizzying my thoughts. Denial was the initial emotion that hit me. He had jumped. He had intended to kill himself. My failed rescue had in no way contributed to his death. Unfortunately, this internal dialogue was neither convincing nor rational. The perp had in fact jumped out, not up nor down. There was a rooftop within range, and he could have projected to land on the adjacent ledge had I not tried to stop him. But I had stopped him, and intentionally or not, my actions led directly to his death. After I had processed and dispatched the denial, I replaced it hurriedly with justification. The stranger had stabbed James in the neck with not an apparent ounce of remorse. He was a murderer, or attempted murderer, and in many states both warranted severe penalties, even death in certain scenarios. He was a bad guy. Bad guys die and society doesn't even blink. So why was I blinking? I couldn't imagine the feeling that I was experiencing was remorse. I hadn't planned to hurt anyone. I had only wanted to subdue him, and I had, even if by extreme and unorthodox measures. But I had always played by the rules, and this was not within those parameters. I was a cog in a system designed to deal slowly and thoroughly with people like this. We had processes, roles, shared responsibilities, checks and balances, the illusion of fairness. But now I had taken control, simplified and streamlined the process. Was I a tyrant? Or a solution to a broken system? And if this change was truly for the better, if my actions were just, why did I feel such a sense of dread? I didn't necessarily regret the act. I didn't regret that a bigoted felon wouldn't be pulling knives on more innocent people. In all honesty, even if with a level of trepidation, I felt empowered. Like my days of relying on procedure, on begging 12 jurors to see truth had been replaced by what I could see with my own 2 eyes and do with my own 2 hands. I had observed, acted, and judged. But I had to come to grips with the path this decision had set me on. I had taken a life, and in the seemingly endless moments that had followed, just now, I figured it out. Sorrow, remorse, regret, surely I had experienced them all, but what I was most experiencing was fear, terror. Had I simply evaded the confines of the right side of the law, to find myself within the even stricter confines of the wrong side? After additional wasted moments rationalizing, I allowed the illicit to engulf my consciousness. Empowered by some demented form of delayed criminal instinct, I broke into a mindless sprint towards the parking garage stairs. With action, the world around me returned, the sounds and smells of the city, and as I ran, for the first time I truly grasped the reality of my predicament. I stewed on consequence. Not only was I a potential murder suspect, but even if I survived the investigation, charges, and trial, my career was ruined. The law is very clear about these types of cases. Self-defense provides a person nearly absolute right to defend themselves or others in serious threat of imminent harm. What self-defense does not provide is free rein to stalk, hunt, and negligently kill when you are no longer in imminent danger. Prosecutors do not play officer, and for good reason. This was a line I had willingly crossed, even if the dire results had been unintended. The dark, concrete world whirled past me as I ran. The role of panic-ridden criminal took root more instinctively than I could have imagined. I reached the bottom floor of the parking garage and backed into a dark corner. Listened. I inhaled as if oxygen alone could solve this problem. It was a quirky superstition I had practiced since childhood. I would convince myself that doing one thing would somehow influence another completely unrelated matter. It started in school with my compass. I would take the sharp needle edge and slowly drag it along the underside of my arm. I thought if I did it enough, eventually I'd feel it, and be just like the other kids. When Dad finally saw the carnage of my inner arm, he ended it. And now still, no matter how much air I breathed, I knew I was still in a world of trouble, and Dad wasn't here to save me this time. The 90-degree angled concrete corner bordered me on both sides as the clack of SWAT boots rattled along the cement. I crouched down, eye level with the hood of the car at my front. Darkness blanketed my position and I peered around the corner. The SWAT unit split into 2 teams seamlessly, like a river at a fork. One flowed towards the staircase to my right, and the other flooded up the ramp directly ahead of me. The clatter of boots grew faint, and I stole the opportunity to exit the scene of the crime. A rogue officer stood chattering on his radio at the gate of the garage. I entered the staircase about 30 feet to his back, and from there exited the side door, opting to walk the longer but unattended path around the building. I reached the end of the alley and slid my head nose-deep around the building to observe huddled cops, cruisers, and a white sheet that had been tossed over the body, no more than a block away. Decision time. I paused, dedicating all of my frazzled resources to a plan of action, a story. What could tie me to the scene? James, if he was alive. Or, if dead, I had left a handprint in his blood on the lobby floor. The 911 call. I had called 911 from my cell phone between the scene of James's stabbing and the fall of the perp. My cell phone remnants. And I glanced down at my hand, still clenched tightly, white knuckles dotted with blood. The jacket. The perp's dark jacket hung at my side. I lifted it closer, and the pocket swung heavy. I reached inside, immediately regretting the decision, as I pulled out a compact blade folded into itself. His fucking weapon. Now, if I simply went home as if nothing happened, I could be suspected of 2 murders, assuming James died. I'd be in possession of a tainted knife and jacket. Even if I wasn't suspected of murder, the phone records and handprint would place me at the scene, making me a person of interest. That would lead to investigation. The press. It would be career suicide, obstruction of justice, evidence tampering, maybe worse. If, alternatively, I confronted the police honestly, I was going to be implicated in the death of the fallen perpetrator, but at least I could explain my motive. I could spare myself charges, perhaps, but my career would still be over. I'd never be taken seriously again by any judge, attorney, or criminal in the city of Boston. As the prosecutor that pushed someone off of a rooftop, I'd be untouchable in my profession. No city or state government would take a risk on me. Even the private sector may balk. I needed to clean and ditch the knife. "Hey!" A voice tracked my position like a dagger in the back. I turned in time to see the cop that had previously been guarding the parking garage, behind me in a jog, his flashlight bobbing up and down as he chugged towards me. Shit. I threw the jacket on and ran towards the cops and the fallen perp. "Help!" I screamed frantically, rumbling towards the huddled group of officers. I glanced back as the officer behind me curved out of the alley I had just departed. "Whoa, buddy!" A large African-American cop caught me in a bear hug just shy of the crime scene. "Someone's after me!" I screamed through my panting fit. I rotated out of his grasp, shielding my torso from his embrace after remembering the knife in my pocket, and pointed behind me. "Calm down. That's just Officer Bentley. I'm Officer Randall." He lowered his face a few inches to emphasize the calmness in his voice. "I saw it. Saw it all. The stabbing, the fall, all of it." "What?" I pointed to the ambulance in front of my building and then to the sheet atop the perpetrator. "All of it," I repeated, bending down to grasp my knees in feigned exhaustion. "Okay, what's your name, sir?" Officer Randall asked, as Officer Bentley slid to a stop beside us. "Ryder Daniels, Boston Prosecutor's Office. I live in that building. Is James okay?" "We're not sure yet. Now, what exactly did you see?" "I came down from my condo to get takeout." I dabbed at my forehead with the sleeve of the perpetrator's jacket. "When I stepped out of the elevator, James wasn't there. I wanted to ask him if he'd eaten." "Okay, easy, buddy." Officer Randall hand motioned to another man who scurried over to our location. "This is Detective Ross. Detective Ross, this man witnessed the stabbing." Officer Randall pulled Ross closer and then left the conversation, dragging Officer Bentley behind him. Ross was mid-40s, Caucasian, about 5'10". He had thin voids for eyes, dark, almost missing beneath the hard overhang of his brow. He wore a leather jacket over medium-built shoulders, with black slacks, black boots, and a neck chain from which his badge dangled at a cockeyed angle. A cigarette hung loosely from his lips as he reached into his back pocket for a hand-sized notepad. "All right, from the beginning, where'd you see?" The words blended as Ross vomited them at me around his cigarette. I repeated what had occurred in the condo lobby with detailed accuracy and honesty. There was no need to lie. Yet. "Okay," he droned again. "So, you find this James guy bleeding, toss a shirt at his neck, and then chase the cat?" Ross gestured to the white sheet. "Well, something like that," I said. "How do you know the guy under the blanket is the guy you chased?" Shit. This was going to put me at the scene. I saw him fall," I admitted, barely managing to suppress my surprise at his question. It was a natural question to ask, and something I should have anticipated. "Wait. Take me back. So you chased this guy out. Where?" "He went left out of the apartment building door towards the alley. I followed, called 911, accidentally dropped my phone, and finally caught up to him atop the parking garage. Before you say any more, pal, I want you to know a little something that I know. You see, you can tell a lot about the way a person falls, by the way they crunch up. That fella right there, it looks like he didn't so much jump. I'm not saying he was pushed. I'm not saying he wasn't. I'm just saying he didn't land or smash up the way a jumper normally does. Ross had robbed me one of my most plausible explanations. Suicide, and my backup narrative was no good. No good at all, but it was all that I had. Makes sense, I said. Meaning, I saw what happened. Okay, so you chased this guy up to the top floor of the parking garage. Then what? He looked like he was running from someone. Another half-truth, I thought. Maybe from you? He was perceptive. No, I had taken my shoes off. I don't think he heard me. Then who was he running from? I'm not sure. Did you see anyone else? The moment of truth. This was where my life's path forked in two very distinct directions. I tell the truth, admit what happened and deal with the consequences, maybe resign from my position, find another profession, and move on with my life. Or I lie. Yes, I chose the latter, panicked and muddled my way into a tall tale that would change my life forever. Can you describe this person? It was a man, I think. He was wearing black. Convenient, Ross fired back. I said nothing. So man in black doeth what? He confronted James' attacker on the roof. Physically? Not at first. It looked like they were talking, maybe arguing rather. About the Sox and Yanks? What to have for dinner? Ross asked mockingly, tilting his head with doubt and suggestion. I couldn't hear from where I was hiding. So this guy in black, what did he do next? The victim turned as if to jump over the side and the man ran after him. Then, I heard him, I looked at the sheet, land. What did the man in black do? He turned and faced me. I thought I was hidden, but he saw me. Did you get a better view of your mystery man at that point? Like I said, he was dressed in black, like form-fitting gear, head to toe. Did he say anything? The look on Ross's face suggested he wasn't buying any of this. Yes. Care to share? He shouted, Aequitas. And what the hell does that mean? Ross jotted the word in his flipbook and returned it to his back pocket. It's Latin. I paused, breathed, and contemplated my previous choices as everything spun wildly out of control, pulling me into a world I hadn't vetted or prepared for. It's Latin for equity or justice. I think Boston has a vigilante on its hands. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed Doleo, please come back for future episodes arriving at regular intervals, and subscribe and rate us on your favorite podcast application. If you enjoyed this production, please visit the Steadychaos Productions YouTube page and subscribe for more content from our production team.